We are all here and we'll get started because I don't want to really spend too much time explaining things. But I do need to explain this part. One, that we are using today brush pens. I chose brush pens, like I was telling Alka, because brush pens are very easily available. There may be a lot of people who do not have watercolor with them and still want to do something like a watercolor painting. So if you don't have watercolor paints, actual paints, this is a good substitute, not the best substitute, but a good substitute. Okay, and it'll get the job done to a very big extent. um, I would want you to check your brush pens and make sure that they are not alcohol based brush pens. They have to be water based brush pens. So how do you know that? It'll be usually written on the case. Now, in my case, this is a DOMS brush pen packet. So usually on the case somewhere, there will be a mention that it is water based. Yeah. See, it says over here color effect with its water based ink. So this is important because if you are using any brush pen that is ink alcohol based, the solution, the water is not going to work with it. Okay. So that's the only thing to check. Now, having said this, if you do not have brush pens, the next substitute for brush pens would be sketch pens. Normal sketch pens that we use at, kids use in school and all that. Those sketch pens will also work because our sketch pens are water based. Yeah. Okay. So that was one thing. This is in terms of material. I've used DOMS. You can use Camlin. You can use any other brand as long as it's water based. The next thing we need is I had mentioned over there plastic sheet. And the plastic sheet that I mentioned is basically any sort of wrapping. Now, if you notice, my brush pen came with some watercolor paper. This particular set came with some watercolor paper. So I was very fortunate. So this watercolor paper is covered in some plastic, right? This kind of a plastic is more than enough. What we are going to do with this plastic is basically use it like a palette. Okay, there is going to be some amount of paint we may want to put on this, and then from there pick up and start painting some of the ink. So that is all we need the plastic for. So any clean plastic, any transparent plastic, any cover will work. Okay, I'm going to use this only because this is so convenient. The paper is inside and it's giving me this white base. So this is really convenient for me to just use as it is without opening. And the good thing is water soluble. So after our mess comes up on this and we are done with our painting, we can just wipe it off and it'll be clean. So your plastic is not really going to get damaged. So that was what the plastic is for. Then we need a brush, and this is a normal round brush. So you will see that I have got two. The second one is not necessary, but you definitely need a fatter one for application. Okay, water application, picking up water from your jar, all that you need a slightly fat one. I've taken a size 6 from Camlin, but really the size does not matter so much. Take a size that is appropriate to your picture. That is most important. So if you're drawing a big leaf, we are going to do poinsettia today. If you're drawing a rather big leaf, remember that you will need a slightly bigger brush. If your leaf is very small, as your illustrating space becomes smaller and smaller, you have to consider using a smaller brush. That's the only guide to what brush should I use. Okay, the size of your illustration should determine what type of brush or what size of brush you are using. Finally, we need a pencil, basically to draw our shape. Okay, so now we will start with watercolor paper. I specifically recommended watercolor paper for one big reason. Uh, our brush pens deposit a lot of ink in one go. So if I take a normal, I'm talking about a normal strip of paper, drawing paper from a drawing book. If I take a paper like this and I use one of my brush pens on this, okay, the nature of our paper is such that whatever ink I put in right here goes right into the paper and it dries up. It gets absorbed at full speed. Now, once it is absorbed, we want to displace this ink. Okay, so that what we are going to do is we are going to take our normal brush, our regular brush that I was talking about, this brush. Okay, we are going to take that, wet it in water. Just take a jar of water, wet your brush inside that, tap it to dry, tap off the excess. And when you come here and touch it here, it is supposed to displace your water. But because this paper, this drawing paper, is extra absorbent of water, this is what is going to happen. It is not going to dislodge the paint. Okay, so that is the reason why I recommended that we not use this. We use watercolor paper itself. You get to buy these loose in certain stationery stores and definitely in all art stores. If you ask for a sheet or A4 or A3 watercolor paper, they will give you one sheet. Okay, you can buy a single sheet if you don't want to buy an entire um, a book or something like that. Now, what is the difference between this paper and watercolor paper? Your regular drawing paper and watercolor paper. Simple difference is that the thickness is different. Now, this is about 120, 140 GSM, this paper, drawing paper. The other watercolor paper is usually 300 GSM. But you can go with even the thinner one, which is 200. Now, I've seen over here, I have got 200 GSM. This is quite thick. Huh? Even 200 GSM is quite thick. So if I pull out a sheet, and I'm going to show this to you. I was telling you I had these sheets that came with DOMs. If you look at it, it says watercolor paper. See? So if you happen to get these sheets with your DOMS colors, even better. You don't have to buy. You can use the same sheets. Okay. So this one is 300 GSM. Grams per square meter. That is what GSM stands for. Now, whether we are using 200 or 300, I want to show you some qualities of watercolor paper. And that is why I wanted to keep this comparison. Let me just pull out one sheet. You can see the difference and then understand what I mean by watercolor paper and this. Now, the same exercise we did over here of applying your mark onto the paper like this. If I do the same thing, dip my brush in water and then just try to spread it, look at the way it is spreading. See? So this is much better simply because it's watercolor paper. Getting it? So that is why I am recommending. So I wanted to just clarify this because I know it's some of you may not have watercolor paper. And if you don't have watercolor paper, I would recommend just watch today's session and do it at a later point when you have watercolor paper. Yeah. Instead of going through the whole process of getting upset that your regular drawing paper is not working the same way. Okay. That's my advice. All right. Having said that, let's get on to the actual picture. Now, for poinsettia, the very first thing that I'd like to show you is drawing of the leaf or the bract. In poinsettia, this is a poinsettia flower. These leaf-like things that look actually like a petal are not petals. They're called bracts. They're red in color because they have to attract attention to the little yellow things in the center, which are the flowers, which are the actual flowers. So to attract your pollinators, you definitely need this flamboyant leaves or bracts to attract attention and get the pollinators to the center. That is the entire operation of these bracts on top. And when their job is done and there is adequate sunlight, bracts can go back to a green color. That's something you should know about poinsettia. Okay. After this, maybe 2 or 3 layers of red color bracts, everything under it is a regular green leaf. Now, bracts being an extension of leaves themselves will follow the same structure as the leaf. So have you seen the venation on the leaf, which is a very normal venation? We have seen it in most plants. You have a central vein followed by those slanting lines, which are the smaller veins. So now that same structure will be there on all the bracts, and that's something that you have to show in poinsettia, because if you don't show these lines and veins, it may be construed as another flower. It could look like maybe a variation of a lotus or any of the other pointy petal flowers. So this is very important that we must show our bracts having the veins. Okay. And other than that, yeah. So what we're going to do first off is we are going to practice the shape of the leaf. And we are going to have to make this shape in many sizes for today's poinsettia flower. So to start off, let's start with a pencil mark. Let's first make a slanting line. How big should this be? There is no size I have in mind. You can give yourself a measure, maybe about 3/4 of your finger should be enough. Okay. What we are trying to get out of this practice is trying to get the shape of the leaf. So start from the base of the leaf. Take your pencil upward and outward like we would normally draw a fat leaf. And somewhere near midpoint, you can start turning inward. By the way, this line does not have to be a perfect curve, nothing like that. You don't need any measuring devices, tools, nothing. Let your hand wobble a bit. Even if it wobbles and the line is not very clean, it's fine. So even if it wobbles, come inward. And when you reach this portion, see, I still have an excess line. So you'll be wondering, oh, the leaf is going to end over here. Why is the central vein still out? That's because I go upwards a bit at this point and I taper. Then I make the same shape on the other side. This kind of a shape is rather important. This kind of a shape of the leaf is rather important because naturally when we are asked to draw leaves, we tend to do this. We make a point, but we make a point rather shapely, you know, like a teardrop, not a teardrop. This isn't teardrop. This would be like a rather pointy end. So when I say pointy leaf, I could get this as a pointy leaf. I could get this as a pointy leaf. But the poinsettia leaf in particular has a point that seems to be a little conical. See, little conical at the end. So it's as if the tip needs some kind of a shape of its own. Doesn't want this kind of an end. Okay. If you were to draw lemon or lime leaves, you would draw it this shape. But a poinsettia leaf ought to be this shape. Okay. So this is what I want you to practice. If you are able to draw this, try one more leaf, but this time change the size. Make it either smaller or larger than what you currently drew. I'm going to make a smaller one. I'm going to make a smaller one. And I'm going to try the same thing that I did with this. The shape has to be identical, but the size is smaller. So we go outward, make it bulbous here, and then come inward. Then make that little conical shape on top. Not conical, it's triangular shape on top. And come back. Hopefully this is not very difficult for those of you who are trying to draw this. Okay. You can draw one more leaf. Let me try one more leaf. So I've got something like a medium leaf. Maybe I could draw something much larger. Okay. Now, as your leaf becomes bigger and smaller, remember that the thickness also needs to be changed. It has to be appropriate to the size of your leaf. So obviously this one, I cannot make it so wide, right? I can't make it this wide, not possible because the size of the leaf itself is small. So the width also has to proportionately reduce. Now, if this is a bigger leaf, then the width has to proportionately increase. So keep that in mind and proportionately adjust the width of your leaf. So far, so good. Leaves are looking okay. Yeah. Okay, great. Now comes the part where we are going to apply paint or the pigment from our brush pens. Here, there are two ways you can do this. I will show you both the ways. The first way is we keep your brush and water ready. Now, keep your brush and water close by because you are going to need to apply directly to the paper in the first type of approach. And now let's start with the red brush pen. This is the only red I have. I'm going to take my brush pen and apply a coat of color on the outer portion of the leaf. Okay. Now, because it's a brush pen, it's rather nice because I can press down and get a nice thick stroke, which I could not probably get um, with the sketch pen. I will do the same thing with the middle. Okay. And you can start gently drawing the veins of the brat. All of this is being done with the brush pen directly onto the paper. By the way, when you're putting veins, don't put too many of them, like 5 and 6 of them. It becomes too cluttered and does not look very poinsettia-ish. Try to space them out and aim for like 2, 3, maximum 3. And if your leaf is very big, maybe 4, but otherwise 3 is good enough. And for smaller leaves, 2 or even 1 is fine. So now this is still at a sketch pen level or a brush pen level. Now if you take your water on a brush and start applying it along the edge on both sides, you have activated your color that was just applied. Now spread that color gently with your brush. Okay. At any point, if you start seeing scratchy lines, all you have to do is wet your brush again. Scratchy lines means your paper has absorbed the water that was in your brush has become dry. Now you need to just apply a little more. So go back into the water, tap off excess water and come back here and spread it. So your job, the brush is doing the job of simply spreading the paint. Okay. And the brush pen did the job of placing the large amount of ink in the right places. We wanted the lines, the veins, all that is done for you. Yes. How is it spreading? For those of you who are trying it out, how is it spreading? Is it spreading nicely on watercolor paper? Let me see. Hold on. I hope you all are seeing. Yeah. Okay. Let's see, Sonal. Yeah. It's spreading right. Quite well. Quite well. Very nice. Great. Alka, let's see yours. Yeah. Perfect. So quite simple, right? I mean, if you think about it, this is what we struggle with often with watercolor because we have to get that wet on wet quite correctly, light and dark and adjust it. But with the brush pen, it's rather simple. Okay, so this is one way to do apply a brush pen ink on. The other way is you take this plastic sheet and now you're going to treat brush pen ink as exactly like you would treat watercolor. So basically a, you make a little bit of a puddle. This is not really a puddle. It's just extracting some ink out of your brush pen onto the plastic. This is plastic, by the way, everyone. Those of you who may not have been there initially, this is just a plastic sheet that is on top of my paper. And after I have done this, I'm going to use this as my watercolor. So take your brush, which has been dipped in plain water. Bring your brush to the edge over here and let that brush make your pigment more watery. So now I'm going to add one more drop of water, just one more drop here. There you go. So I'm basically lightening my pigment by adding water to it, getting it to become a light color. And after I have sufficient quantity, because remember this light color has to fill a full leaf. So just remember just remind yourself that you need to make enough of it to fill a full leaf. Okay, now I think this should be enough for my leaf. So with this light color, I'm going to simply paint all over my leaf very gently. If possible, try not to repeat too many strokes. Just add one stroke after the other or one below the other and fill up your leaf. So here in this sense, we are using the brush pen ink as watercolor. Okay. Now, while it is still wet, for those of you, I'm not sure how many of you all know wet on wet. While this is still wet, quickly go and touch the ink that was not diluted and put it into your central vein. If this ink is starting to dry off, you can go get your brush pen again and draw it out on that plastic sheet. So I'm trying to do this wet on wet. It is a little challenging with brush pen ink because the water content in it is much less than with normal watercolor paints. Okay. So you may find that this method is more vibrant. This method is a little less vibrant, but it is probably a nice thing to do when you want your leaves to be a little light. Not all leaves have to be this dark. So maybe it is a combination of these techniques that you'll want to employ depending on which leaf you are doing. So the ones that are centrally located, that means in the first and second layers, are usually darker reds. And as they go behind, they are lighter. So then maybe in the lighter ones, you could employ this strategy. Okay. Whichever way, whichever strategy you apply, it is a question of you choosing what you are most comfortable with. If this is tedious, choose this option. If this is too dark, choose this option. It's really up to you. Okay.
Susan, have a
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Yeah, so to for the second approach, can I use
Uh-huh.
my regular palette and like
Yes.
use a
Yes.
pen on that? And
Yes.
yeah, okay,
You can.
okay,
And the other thing that I would recommend is, since brush pens do not give out too much of ink, okay, since they do not, and you don't want to waste time. Now, time is of essence, especially if you're doing wet on wet. Time is of essence. You do not want to keep on going back drawing. Okay. On your palette, if you can make several of these little blobs, then you have more chances of picking quicker. Okay, while the paint is still wet. So when you are working in a palette, you have more space. Maybe do this once, do this a second time, do this a third time, and keep it ready for use. Okay.
got it.
Yeah. Once you do this, what happens is there's just more pigment ready for you to work with while it is still wet. Otherwise, its chances are your base layer can get a little dry, and then the wet on wet doesn't look so nice. Okay. So, any questions
Susan,
so far?
yes,
Yes.
Susan, I just wanted to check. See, in both the leaves that you have used,
Yeah.
the one in which you spread the the brush pen,
Mm-hmm.
the border is evident, right? Is
Yes.
that how
Yes.
it is supposed to be?
No, so that is a choice that I have made because I
Okay.
wanted, yeah, because I wanted it to be dark. So a darker leaf, I
Mhm.
wanted it to have that. So if you feel that you want to use this technique, this approach for a lighter
Understood.
leaf, don't put the border.
Okay. All right.
Simply
I know.
put
So,
the
which looks
central way. Yeah,
closest to a poinsettia?
yeah. What is that? Sorry.
Which of it looks closest to a poinsettia?
Usually, of course, this. But
Okay,
at the
so it
same
has
time, if
that
you are,
border.
yeah, yeah, it does, it
Okay.
does.
Okay. Okay.
If you look at, so for that, you need to do a little bit of self-analysis. So what you need to do is, before you draw any flower, the best thing to
Mm-hmm.
do is look at an actual photograph of the flower, not an illustration. So I would not
Understood.
recommend saying, looking at this. Now, this is an
Okay.
illustration. I have already visualized it in some way and drawn it out. What you need to
Understood.
look at is a real picture. So what I'll show you a real picture because I have one. Here you go. Now this is a real picture. This gives you an idea about the shading. Yeah. It's a very pretty flower and it is a rather deep color also. You don't need to be very light with poinsettia. And as you go lighter, the flower starts to become a little pinker, which is not what we want. We want the bright red. Okay. So so definitely I would say apply your brush pen ink more generously than less generously. That's what I would say. But look at your picture. Your picture shows you that the central vein is definitely dark, and you can also start to see some shading at the base. Okay, some of these leaves where the leaves are overlapping, you do see these dark portions. So if you see that dark portion, adjust your brush pen. So what I mean is, this is where you are put your brush pen down wherever you want the dark color. So this is where I want the dark color, then put it there at the base. Okay. And then of course I want my veins. So now I'm adjusting, all my dark portions are already painted in with brush pen. Then I take the water and I spread. But the areas that I spread paint to will never be as dark as the area that I've applied the brush pen to directly.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct.
Correct? So
Yes,
this
that's
is
right.
something you have to kind of calculate when you are painting every single leaf. You may want that shade to be there in some leaves. In other leaves, you may want the shade to be maybe at the side. I noticed that some of the leaves over here even have a double shade for the same leaf. So for one side, you have a darker color and the other side, you have a lighter color. That is just because the leaf is folded. And you may want to
And
capture that. So if you want to capture that, make sure you apply more on one side, more of that pigment on one side, and then you will get the shading. Yeah,
all right. Yeah, thanks, Susan. Looks good.
great. Okay. So now that we've understood this, let us draw our poinsettia structure. The structure of a poinsettia is essentially so contained within a circle. I'll just zoom up a bit. Yeah. It's contained within a circle. So I'm going to give myself on this page, because my page is large. I don't know how big your pages are, but if your page is large enough to accommodate, let's say, the size of your hand, you can plan to make your entire illustration this big. Okay. When you're drawing poinsettia, I'll tell you from experience, if you start directly doing the center and then drawing the bracts one after the other, the chance is that you will not realize how big you're getting. You may have started saying that I want to fit it in this much space. You start with the center, you put 2, 3 leaves, and by the time you reach the third level, you're already nearing the edge of your sheet. Okay. And this is where trouble starts, because you anticipated that it would be smaller, but your leaves started growing bigger. Okay. So this is where you need to plan according to the space you have. So if the space you have is only this much, if this is all you have, this corner, then make sure that you draw the outline of that circle within the space you want. So if this is the space that you want to draw your poinsettia in, make sure you give yourself that outline. On the other hand, I want it to be in the rest of the space. I have so much of space, and I may want it to be nice and big. In that case, draw it that big. Draw your circle that big. Okay. So this guide in the beginning is usually quite helpful for you to plan how big your leaves should be. Otherwise, quite like plants that grow freely, they will grow whatever size they want to grow because there is adequate space. Or a fish in a bowl, a fish will grow according to this environment. That's how your painting will evolve, your illustration. Now, after you have drawn the outer circle and you have defined your limit inside which you want your entire spread, then you can go and put your central portion. The central portion is a little circle in the center. Try not to make this very big. We often like to be very generous with our circles. Try not to make this very big, because the central flowers are really quite small, proportionately quite small. So keep this central circle a little small. Now I'm going to show that over here. If I were to do it on a smaller circle, my central flowers would actually be inside this space. See? I'm going to show you 2 different sizes, just because whatever size you are doing, you will be able to scale accordingly. Yeah. So try to make your poinsettia with this guideline, just to keep yourself not going out of limit. The next thing to do is deciding where to put your leaves. And in a flower like poinsettia, geometry does not play much of a role. Symmetry, sorry, not geometry. Symmetry doesn't play much of a role. Not a very symmetric flower, right? It has leaves going in different directions, not only in different directions, it is not a uniform distribution of direction. Neither is it a uniform size of leaf. Have you noticed? I have leaves lying next to each other, which are big and medium and small. So let's be very, very free with the way we draw our leaves, which is very difficult, more difficult than you think. We love symmetry. By design, we are trained to be symmetric in what we do. So our first set of leaves, bracts, will start all bracts will start from the center. I want that to be very clear for everyone. All lines that come out from here, they have to be radiating lines. This is the start of your stalk of your plant. So remember, everything is sitting one on top of each other on the same stalk, not somewhere else. So there is no extra portion where it is growing out of. All of them are coming out from here. And the top layers are the smallest, newest leaves and bracts, and the bottom layers are the older ones. So let's start with the topmost. Let's assume we want short ones here, because we do not want it to be very big in the beginning. So let's draw some lines. I'm going to make these lines of different lengths because I want leaves of different lengths, bracts of different lengths. So one is medium, one is a little small. I can put one here, a little smaller. Can you see? Vary your line height because that will make your leaf also of a varied height. And place it in any 4 directions you like. Okay? Doesn't have to be evenly spaced. Try, in fact, not to be evenly spaced. And also try to keep the lines at the varying heights so that automatically you will end up drawing a leaf that is of a different height and a width. So let's start from the base and do exactly the same shape we did over here. So go outwards, come up, turn, and go in. So that's my first leaf. It's this tall only because I made it that tall. The next one is going to be longer than that. So this way. Don't be in too much of a hurry to draw this outline. Just be a little conscious. There, slightly bigger. Now this one is like really tiny. I can hardly get much out of it, and that's fine. It's also not going to be very fat. It's a small leaf. Then I have one over here. So the first layer of leaves, our newest bracts, are fully visible to everyone. This is important because we are going to now go down layers. And as we go lower and lower in the layers, the leaves are going to be less and less visible. So we are going to be ending up drawing only what is visible above, under other leaves. Okay, that is why the first layer is important, because here the leaf is complete. You're drawing an entire complete leaf. So far, so good. So I've got 4. If you want to have 5 over here at this point, you only want 3. That's really up to you. Now, we'll move on to the second layer of leaves. For the second layer of leaves, again, remember, the rule is all lines radiate from this central circle. So let's try and put a leaf somewhere in the middle. Now, our natural reaction here is to do this, right? Because we like to place it exactly in the middle of 2 leaves, right? That's our natural, that's what we would naturally do. When you say place between 2 leaves, this is what we would do. And that's nothing wrong with it. But as we said earlier, the flower itself is unpredictable in its symmetry. There is no symmetry. So let's try and be a little organic in our lines. Instead of putting that line in the center, how about we put it a little off center, like this? See, it is still between the 2 leaves, but it is a little off the center. Okay. So one is in the center, it's fine. All don't have to be that way. One can be in the center, one can be off center. Now, again, I will ask you to just pay attention to the height of your line. Don't make them consistent. You can make one a little long, one a little short. You could put one here like this, that is quite long, significantly longer than the other 2. Then maybe one over here, not so long, maybe only so much. So I'm varying the height, I'm varying the position. I'm trying to be asymmetric. So that's my second layer. Yeah, I think maybe 4. If you feel like a 5 is possible, we could put a 5. Maybe I'm just trying to think where. Okay, let's decide that later. How about we draw these leaves, then we'll decide if we want a 5th one. Okay. Now, when you're drawing these leaves, we can start from the base again. And remember, we have to start going outward and back inward. Get that little conical shape, sorry, triangular shape on top. Go outward again. Be generous with the width. Make sure that the width is proportionate to the height. And when you reach this point where you touch a leaf that is already on top, please do not draw a line over it. Leave it. So basically, this is how you show that this leaf is under the layer on top, right? Now let's try another one. Anyone. We'll start from the base, go outward, and I reach a crisis right here because already my leaf is overlapping. So I'll leave that space, let the pencil go over the space, and then continue from the other side. Oh, okay, I'm making this a little longer. What I have noticed from my experience is this portion, if you start going a little fast and you start making your illustrations really quick, sometimes the balance goes off and the leaf shape gets compromised. So be a little slow and intentional with your leaves. So I've got a little overlap here also. Let's try this one. This one may not have too much overlap because it's after all sitting right in the center between two leaves. And let the line wobble a bit. See, I have a little wobble in my line. It's okay. It's what makes it look quite nice when you wobble the line. Okay, so this one really did not overlap because there was so much of space, but that's not going to be the case with this one. This is definitely overlapping here itself. Then move your pencil over this and come back here and continue that line. It's a nice exercise to do this go over the space that you intended to draw over. It's a nice exercise. Why? Because then what happens? The pencil lands at the right place. A lot of us make this mistake of drawing the line and then picking up our pencil and continuing somewhere else. And that continuing somewhere else often causes our shape to go off. So if you can do this, although it looks like a very juvenile thing to do, come till here, lift your pen and let it go in the air and then continue. It really does help get your shape right. It's a kind of air drawing. All right. So now that I've put 4 leaves, I'm starting to think maybe it's okay. I'll leave it at 4. It's starting to already get complicated. But very important, till this point, all our leaves are still attached to the center circle, right? We can see it. Now, by the time we get to the 3rd layer of leaves, you're going to start finding it difficult to see how it attaches to the center. So when that happens, don't ever start making your leaf at another point. Use that imaginary pencil line and start it from the base. So let's start our next 3rd layer of leaves. Again, we are filling it in the gaps. Let's try and put one line from here going up all the way higher till here. See? So my line starts from here and goes all the way up till here. Now my leaf is bigger. It's an older leaf. So it's going to be bigger. I will also try to put one over here, starting from here and then crossing over. So see, I'm air drawing that line, letting it go up, but only to this point, not so big. I'm going to make it a smaller leaf, brat. Then let's do one from here, going up and stopping here. That's fine. So already it's starting to form some sort of a predictable shape. So let's watch out for that predictability. Let's try and break it. Maybe one here. We can break it here by making our line come out all the way here. See, now at least the gap is different. Okay. Maybe one more here will be nice. So let's do one here. Line comes out from here. Make it shorter. And I feel like I can put one here too. So let me put that as well. Line. And at this time, I'll make it a little bigger. So uneven lines of uneven heights, not uneven line is straight, but the height of each line is different. And the spacing between these lines is also a little erratic. And now you know what is going to happen. We are basically drawing the shape of that leaf again. Now, like I mentioned, a lot of air drawing is going to happen now because there's so much of overlapping. A lot of overlap happening. So please continue your air drawing. Air drawing starts from here. I get the base and then it's all in the air. It goes up, it curves, And then I can now put my pencil down, continue, make that triangle and a fat leaf, come down, air draw, air draw, air draw, air draw, and come till here. See? So this air drawing is really, really important. Do it very slowly, very intentionally, and your shape will come out very well. Okay? Don't be hurried about it. When I was doing it with the kids, I was finding this rather challenging because the kids were finding the overlapping confusing. Okay? And not their fault. It is, I mean, we struggle with this as adults. But have a look at this. This line here actually starts from the center. But when you can't see much of the line in the beginning part, it is natural for us to feel like we want to draw up our leaf like this. I'm just showing you, don't draw this. I'm just showing you a common mistake. It is a common mistake. This leaf has not attached itself to the stalk of the plant, correct? The leaf has gone and attached itself somewhere in the air, which is actually inaccurate, right? Inaccurate logically. So this is the mistake that we often make. We tend to think that the next leaf I attach, it needs to start from somewhere here. I can put this, I can just put a line like this, line like that. That is a common mistake with poinsettia. Okay, so to correct that mistake, keep doing this thing about the radiating line. The line that starts always from the center goes out, and your air drawing business that allows that line to the leaf shape to begin from here. So let's draw, let me just correct this mistake, which I don't want. I definitely don't want this. It changes the shape of the leaf and the size of the leaf, because now an outside leaf is becoming so small, right? Outside leaves cannot be so small. The bottom leaves have to be nice and big. So it will go wrong if you do not start from the very center. So let's do this from the center. A lot of air drawing is going to be happening before you can put your pencil down and start drawing the actual leaf. And the reason I say continue is because you never know, at the end, you may need to just fit that last part in. The last part may just be there, the connection. So don't stop and say, oh, there's a leaf over there, let's just stop. No, don't stop. Check whether it joins. The joining still needs to be there. It's very logical, I must say. It is very logical. Does anyone have any questions so far? I mean, any questions that are challenging you? Anything that is you find difficult so far? Because we're we're going to now, after I guess another few more leaves, we are pretty much done. We'll be doing our painting part. At this point, nothing new. If you've understood this concept, you're just radiating outward with bigger leaves. Third layer will be a little confusing, huh? So eyes down if you really need to concentrate and get those shapes in. Okay, now see, I'm losing track. This line, it has to go all the way down to this center. Ah, there. So I have to start from here. Always remember to just check. Sometimes the line is only disrupted by another leaf. This is where I start. So go outward from here. There. At this point, we have completed putting quite a few of the red bracts. Now, the only thing really left to add are the green leaves. And the green leaves don't have to be as many as the red leaves. They, in fact, hardly any of them really peek out. You can only see the tips. So just place them strategically now. You have to think, where all can I put the green leaf? Should I put it all over the place, like at every gap? No, not required. Look at some space. Now it is a question of aesthetically looking at your paint, at your drawing and saying, where do you think it will look best? So this is a nice open space here. Potential for adding a leaf here. There's definitely potential for adding at least one here and maybe one on this side. That's about it. Nothing more. Don't go and pack it up with too many green leaves. Okay. So let's do the same exercise. Start from the center, find that gap. So a line that will go from here all the way straight up. And this time we can reach just a wee bit higher, almost to the end of the circle, and draw a line there. So that's one leaf. I don't mind another leaf over here. So line comes out, and goes here. This is really tough because now we can't see the baseline. See, the base is entirely covered. All the leaves have covered our base. So this imaginary line, if you feel like drawing it in pencil lightly, go ahead and do it, but just erase it afterwards. You could draw an imaginary line. Okay. All right. I'll have one leaf here. Then maybe one leaf, green leaf over here. Yeah, this may be a good place. So start here. All right. This is another one. And I'm tempted to finish off one over here. Okay. So let's start from here and let's go in this gap here. Go upward. Make a nice big one. Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4 leaves is that's it. And these are the green ones, by the way. Now, very, very challenging because none of them can you see the base. None of them. So please keep your finger on the center. Remind yourself that is where you need to reach. Now start from the opposite side. Make that conical shape. And just imagine how wide it would reach to reach here. Same way on the other side. Make that conical shape. And just imagine how far it would go to reach all the way down here. If you don't imagine this, what is going to happen is you're going to end up making something very thin like this. You're going to end up making a leaf too thin. So just imagine the distance before drawing the leaf. Let's do the same thing for another leaf. Okay. I'm going to imagine, rotate your paper wherever you want. Imagine this is the center and we need to make the leaf this tall. So let's start from here and go outward. So our leaf would have gone this way and come all the way here. Same way on the other side. Wide. And it would have gone down and come here. So you get a good estimate of how wide that leaf should get. Otherwise, we will not make it a wide leaf. One more estimate, and this is a really big one. Okay, so start from here. Now this is a big leaf, so it has to become wide, but it disappears. Okay, and then from here, it goes wide, and most of it is gone. Last one. Same point. I'm wobbling a little more with these leaves. Huh? Yeah, proportionate. And with this, I will stop. I can go on and on till you complete the entire circle and things like that. But really, at this point, it's quite complicated enough and I don't want to really complicate it more. Once you have done this, I will ask you to do one more thing. Put a little arrow pointing to the leaves that are green because it is very easy for us to confuse in our urgency to kind of finish it off. We will end up covering one of the green leaves in red and then you can't get it back. So let's mark from outside, point with an arrow that this leaf, this one, and this one are all green. They are not red. Everything else is red. Yes? Okay. Now we can start with our coloring. As it turns out, your red color in the brush pens or red sketch pen is actually more than enough red. I avoid using pink because this red, when you dilute it, it starts to look pink only. So I would really not advise going into a pink color. Try using just the red. So this is green. Let's start with the outermost one. This is now just check before you start. We have marked this is green. This is green. So this is definitely red. For this one, I will put my line in the center. Okay. I can see a part of my center here. Do you notice that the base of the leaf is going to be like hidden? It's a shadow region. So you can color it up entirely in the red color because you want it to be a deep color. The base of the leaf, which is like getting the shadow of all the other leaves falling on it, is not going to be a light color. So go ahead and make that whole thing red, no problem. And then the other place that I will notice it's going to be little dark is over here. I'm definitely going to see some darkness over here, correct? Some darkness at this point where the leaves are folding in. Thereafter, I don't want darkness. I only want the lines of the petals, or the veins of the bracts. So like I said before, don't go more than 3. I think 3 is more than enough. And also make these like with the tip of your brush pen without pressing too hard. So then it looks a little delicate. So the brush pen has done the darkest shades for you. Now with a moist brush, you are simply dislodging the paint and filling up all the other areas. So you have to come to the center where the paint is maximum and start dislodging the paint. When you come in with water on your brush, please remember, don't make it a very wet brush. Just tap it at the edge of your jar and don't come with a blob of paint. That's what I'm trying to say. As you rub the brush over your lines, they will become more the paint will spread, and that red that you put down very dark is going to look lighter and lighter. Okay, that's your first one. Did you notice that all this darkness is very much here right at the base, and we want that shading, right? It's all there, dark over here but lighter towards the tip. Looking okay? If we need to correct this for any reason, we want to put more darkness, we can do that later. We can add more darkness with our brush pens later. On to another one. Let's try another leaf, not close to this one, maybe a little away. This is not red. All the time, please check that you are not painting a green leaf. So again, I'm going to put in a little darkness at this base. But that's about it. Thereafter, I'm just doing this. Now, this is where also you can put in the shade that you like. Now, suppose you feel you want to give this side of the petal a little more darkness, a little more shade, then just thicken your lines over here. Just thicken it slightly. So what I'm saying is, this side of my leaf, I would like a little darker, but this side of the leaf slightly lighter. Then just make the veins a little thicker here and thinner here, and then activate. Activate from the base where the paint is maximum, then dislodge it around. If the paint is dry, if your brush is getting dry, dip it again in water. Okay, so I've dislodged all the paint. Now question of making this side little darker. So let's dislodge a little more on one side. You have the option of coming back to this palette, our makeshift palette, activating some paint over here and making this side a little darker. So this option is very much there. See? I really like the way it shades with brush pens, huh? To be very honest. It shades really well on watercolor paper. With a lot more ease is what I'd say. All right, going around. Now, I would love to have done this leaf, but it is quite close to the one that is still a little damp. So avoid that and let's go to something that is not touching it. And here again, the same darkness that I want from the base. It works very well because we want to see the veins on the poinsettia. So in this particular exercise where we want to see those lines, brush pens making those lines in advance saves us the job of making the lines afterwards. The only downside, yeah, I should discuss the downsides, is that the colors that we have in the brush pen palette are rather stark. Okay. Now, if we were doing this whole exercise with watercolor, we would have mixed the red with the crimson, maybe with a little bit of yellow. We would have had a few shades, nice shades to work with. And that is not so much the case with brush pens. If you do want to work with a few shades, you will have to do that separately over here with your palette. So let me show you one where I might introduce a little bit of yellow. It's just to show you, it's not because the poinsettia needs it. I'm going to show you how to introduce a little bit of yellow over here. So assume I have my center, a little darkness here, not too much, just a little bit. And this is done. Now on your palette, you can take this yellow and just make a little bit of a puddle here. Just keep it there, handy, because we need to dip into it only where we want to apply the yellow. Wet your brush, and with this clean water brush, let's activate that red, spread it around. Okay. Let's assume somewhere here, I would like to introduce the yellow. Come and pick up that yellow here and simply weave it in to the red that is there. See? If you feel the yellow is too much, go clean your brush. Wash off that excess. Come back and just take the red that is still on your paper. See? So now I feel like this is a bit light. I can go back, activate a little bit of red over here, and let's just apply it darker, a little bit darker here. Can you see the shade of yellow that has come in? Now, you don't need to do this. Ideally, the poinsettia really doesn't have that yellow, but I just wanted to show you how you could blend. If you do want to blend it on the palette, on what we are using as our makeshift palette, and introduce it while the paint is still wet. That's it. Now, this exercise can go on and on because we've got quite a few red leaves. So let us go on to the green leaf. I would leave you to do the remaining reds. Maybe I'll do one small red. Let me do a small red because the small reds are right in front and they are quite dark. And before we go to small reds, I forgot completely about the flowers. We have flowers in between. Okay. The flowers of the poinsettia are rather small and like stubby. So they kind of look ovalish or roundish. And you can just make these shapes in your pencil. Make them a little organic, make them a little big and small. Not all of them are the same size. So let's just make a few circles, ovals in the center. I completely forgot about this, got carried away with the leaves. That should do. See? And these are yellow in color. So I will just go with my yellow color brush pen. Very simply color it. Easiest way. Just color it all yellow. Now you'll ask me, Array, but it's all yellow. What about shading? The shading will be on your sheet here. Okay, on your palette. Let's put a little bit of yellow here. Let's mix it with a little bit of brown. That's why I asked you to get brown. If you put brown here next to yellow, you can do a little bit of mixing. Take that brush of yours, clean brush, and just let's just mix a little bit of that brown into the yellow over here, so that you get something that looks like yellow ochre, you know, on your paper itself here. And this is just enough to put in the gaps. So in the gaps here, you can put a little bit of that yellow ochre. And one more color that you can put in the gaps is green. So let's put some green as well. Just a little bit of green, a hint of it around some of the circles. As if you are, you know, like going around each circle, no? As if you're giving it an outline, you can put a little bit of green outline for all the circles. By doing this, you are going to see some yellow, some green, some little bit of brown, and it shows some variation in color. That's it, nothing more. On to our little brush. I just wanted to do one of these little ones. Little ones are actually very dark. So I'm going to keep the central vein dark. The outline, I'm going to put the outline. You were asking, no, Nidhi, I think about the outline. This is a good place to put the outline because I want it to be a darkish looking leaf. I'm leaving very little white space and just covering up that with water. Now, not much detail on these little ones. And don't worry about that, but they are definitely darker than the ones on top, which is fine, which is what we want. Maybe this is dried, so I can show you this one. If you want, okay, there's a question here. If you want it darker than the red that I'm currently putting, what would you do? Any ideas? What if my red, this red, had to be darkened? What would you do?
Add a little brown or a little
Correct.
or
That's it. That's it. You just not purple. Purple gets a little too dark, but a brown is a very nice shade. So you can just put your brown down here. Keep it ready. And pick it up when you are wetting your red. So if I'm wetting my red here, while I'm wetting it, go pick up that brown also and put it in. Not too much, because otherwise it's going to become really brown. So control the amount of pigment you are adding. Sometimes we get very carried away and we end up putting too much of color. So not too much color, just enough to make it slightly darker than the red that is on the sketch pen itself. See? So we have managed a red that is a wee bit darker. The challenge with this is, of course, that the lines are going to be a little bit challenging, right? So after it has dried, if you feel that the lines need to be seen, you can directly go in with your brush pen and make those lines. But I would say after it's dry, because not good to let your brush pen touch any wet surface. It's just generally not good for your brush pen, which is why you'll see I'm always applying it on a surface and then using it, but not letting the brush pen touch water. It'll really ruin your brush pen. Okay, I think I've covered most of the reds and the various ways in which you can fill up your reds. Let's go on to the green. Green is obviously the same. there is not much difference in terms of application, but in terms of color, I don't like the green that comes with the brush pens. It is just too vibrant, and poinsettia green is not this green, to be very honest. So what you can do is you can do a little bit of merging and mixing on your palette, and then when you apply it there, you will put that in at different places and let your green become a little nicer. Neither of these greens do I like. They are both a little too terrible, really. This is like a bluish green, and the other one is like fluorescent green. So, like terrible greens to work with, really. I get it. It makes that poinsettia look so awkward, really. So, I keep my brown handy. Let's see. Let's see what happens. So, my green, because I marked my arrow, I know this is my green. Let me start with a nice thick application. All of this is going to be dark. Okay. I'm being very generous with my green because if I make it too light, the leaf itself will become very light, and then we'll have to go more with more layers and more things, more rounds to get that green darker. So let's just be generous with the light green. There you go. Be generous, wet it. And now let's come and start incorporating these. See? Terribly dark green. So my brown is handy at this point. Let's bring that brown in. Why am I darkening this? Same concept as the leaf, the red bracts that we were doing. I'm darkening it because there is a shadow. Wherever a leaf emerges behind another leaf, there is a slight shadow. Okay, now I'm just blending it because the blending has not been very good. We want it to be slightly more cohesive. We don't want all these rough edges. Tip of your brush is more than enough to blend. And not a wet brush, but a damp brush. There's the difference between wet and damp. There. I think you could say it is not as dinchak as the paint, but yeah, still not so great. My watercolors would have given me a better green. So that's my green. I'll do one more green on this side. Turn it over. Be generous with my light green application. By the way, if you are wondering if you can mix two colors on the paper itself, yes, you can. How would you do that? You take your green, start your orange, brown on top of it a little bit. Maybe even bring in a little bit of the dark green. You can do all this really. The job you will be left with is to blend it correctly. Because now you're blending it on the paper, not on the plastic. Activate your, at the darkest point of application, activate the color. And then spread it with your brush. There. Now I come back to my palette and try and put in a little bit of the dark green over here. A little bit of the brown. Yeah, it's become quite dark. And that's it. So I have two more greens to complete. But whatever you are doing, just check that the colors near you aren't wet. So if I'm doing this next, it's not a good idea because the green is still quite wet. Let it dry nicely. So go to another side where there is no wetness, everything is dried. Then go and do that particular. So move around your poinsettia very organically. Move around, and you should be able to manage. Okay. I know we have crossed our hour by 15 minutes, so I don't want to keep you all longer. what you can be left to do is, one, of course, erase this circle. So if you have a kneadable eraser, you can use that. The circle is not required anymore. And if this was a card, if you were doing this on a card, you may want to include some lettering like Merry Christmas, Happy Christmas, whatever you would like to put. So again, brush pens come handy. If you are comfortable using the brush pen for lettering, then go ahead and use it, because then the colors are very cohesive. It's exactly what you put for your flower. So it should be easy to do. I will show it to you.
Susan, I
Would
have a
have been-
question.
Yes.
So now, can you see my drawing?
Oh, wait, let me just hold on. Okay, I'll just spotlight you. Yeah, tell me.
Okay, so now these leaves that I have drawn,
Mhm.
if I leave them for a bit and come back to it later, does it affect it, or do I have to complete doing them by?
Yes, it does affect.
It
So
does affect
this
it.
what, yes, it does affect. I'll tell you why. Because the paper has absorbed all of it entirely very fast. This is the same logic with which we had done. I was telling you that the entire thing we did would not work on drawing paper, normal cartridge paper or drawing paper. Why does it not work? Because this process of the ink being absorbed by paper completely happens very quickly for cartridge paper. It is working very well for us only because this is watercolor paper. Watercolor paper takes its own time with water. It is in no hurry to absorb water. But once it has absorbed, then really to get it back out of the fiber is very, very hard. So even what you have done, Alka, in terms of marking all those leaves first and then going with the water, I would advise against it, because then what will happen is your blending could get affected. You may realize that by the time you reach the fourth leaf, the ink is not coming out as much
Out,
as you would
yeah.
have wanted. Yes, yes.
Okay,
Okay. So
all
I
right,
would definitely advise not doing that. Do
all
it
right.
one leaf at a time so that it
Okay,
is still wet and juicy for you to spread.
all right, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
that's definitely, but that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, huh? Because otherwise you'll think, oh, I can go back to it later and then only to discover. No,
No, no,
not happening.
no. No. Unlike, so that is the quality of, so ink, unlike watercolor, even
Yeah,
though it is water soluble, it is not the same pigment at all.
correct.
At all. The base of a watercolor is completely different from the
Yes,
ink that is used in these pens.
yeah.
So they dry very differently. The ink in the pen dries
Hmm.
quite fast. So reactivation is not the same like watercolor. Watercolor, even if it dries like after 10 years, you could come back, put water to it,
Yeah,
and it will activate to a very large extent. Yeah. So just keep that in mind. Yeah. That is definitely one to keep in mind. But what I like about this and this experiment is that now suddenly it opens up a lot of possibilities for when I don't have watercolor with me. I
correct.
can work with brush pens, and it is so nice to work with brush pens because now you can treat them somewhat like watercolor, use their abilities in your favor, and still have a nice output without any watercolors. Simple.
Yeah, particularly if you want to do something in a hurry, like
In
you
a
don't have
hurry or
time
travel,
and you want
you
to
want
make
to
a
travel with
card or
something that
something.
doesn't
Yeah,
leak. Yeah, you want to travel with something that doesn't leak. This is great. So
So
I'm
if
gonna
I
write.
want to accentuate, the first layer and the second layer, now my reds are looking the same. So if I want to
Okay.
darken some boundaries of leaves just so that the layering becomes a little visible,
Yes.
how can we do
Yeah.
that with the brush pen?
So that you can directly, either you can directly go in with your brush pen, which I was telling you about. Now, for example, this leaf, this topmost one, it's a dark leaf anyway, but my veins are not visible. So if I want to show the veins, I can just directly go in with my brush pen and put in the veins, make it darker. All that can be done. Okay. You can do this directly. You don't need to put it onto the palette. But if you feel you want more control, now it's a bigger leaf like this. Okay. In this leaf, I really don't want to have that stark red come because it's a lighter leaf anyway. I just want a little bit of darkness. Then the better thing to do is put it here. Put it here and apply it.
Okay.
Darken it a little more sensitively. Okay. Here I'm being very liberal because I know these are my darkest leaves. And I know that my sketch pen, my brush pen can't get darker than this. It'll be only this dark. No darker than this.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, I will just do this last part. Sorry, it's not part of the poinsettia, but just because I love writing the word around. So let me just plan my word Christmas. CH. And since I have brush pens, I'm going to use them for what they are intended. And no matter how many times I do this, the pencil work is required. I'm never confident about my lettering enough to directly do it. So I love to write it. Okay, so I got my placement more or less right. Now with this red pen, I can do. This is another skill in itself. Working with a brush pen to write letters, that is quite a challenging skill. You will have to work on it. But once you do it, believe me, it is so lovely. A worthwhile skill to have. And I can probably just use a normal pen. Oh, I almost dropped my water. Normal black pen to write Mary. MER. Now I sweat when I work with paint, and I have smudged often by putting my hand right on top of paint. So please learn from me. Always have a sheet of paper that you can place under your palm when you are doing such experiments. MERRY. Yeah. So brush pens and a fine liner pen. That's all I needed. You can do a fantastic job. Okay. That's it. That's it for this poinsettia. If you do finish it, do post it on Instagram or send it to me. I would love to see your completed poinsettia. I will also be putting it up on Instagram. So yeah, please go ahead and put it up. So I hope you explore brush pens because they're great fun.
Yeah, this has been a very wonderful session, Susan, because I never thought of being able to use brush pens like this. My kids use it. Yeah.
I know. I discovered it myself only because I had to use it. And then I was like, oh, really? We can do this? That is nice.
And the colors are quite vibrant. And
Yes.
in fact, what I saw just now, the sketchbook that I had, like which is my practice book, is a regular Brustro 200 GSM, and the way it spread was so much better. And when I
Yes.
actually started on my the proper sketchbook that I have, this is 100% cotton. It's being a little difficult, the spread.
Oh.
You do not need 100% cotton watercolor paper for this activity is what I've
Yes,
experienced right now.
you may be absolutely right. You may be absolutely, because what I'm using also is not 100% cotton. It is that 25%. It's
So
only
that works
25%
better.
cotton.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's a good point. That's a good point. You're right. So maybe not 100% cotton, maybe yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because it's leaving firm lines right now, no matter how quickly
Yes.
and how much I'm blending, the firm lines are still seen, which was not the
Okay.
case in my rough book right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to, I think, complete this one as well and repeat it on a smoother, little like 25% cotton paper.
Yes.
That's a good point. Thanks.
Yes. That's a learning for me too, because I
Yeah,
just used 25% cotton from the very beginning. I didn't even assume to try. So I'll be very honest, 100% cotton, I just can't bring myself to experiment with. I just can't.
Mhm.
True.
It's
Yeah,
just, my heart breaks if I make a mistake and I
absolutely.
feel like I've lost my 100% cotton paper. So that is why I never learned this.
Yeah, but you don't even need. I just
Yeah.
saw just now, and after the practice leave, I thought, let me now get on to the actual cardstock, and because I really wanted to give this as a Christmas
Right.
card.
Right.
But
Right.
what I'm seeing is it worked better on the 25%.
On the
Yeah.
oh, good. Great point. Good point.
Great. So I'll
Thanks.
definitely share whatever the outcome
Yes. Please do.
Okay.
Great. All right. So I'm going to call it an end. I'll put this recording up on YouTube or Instagram somewhere. It'll be up. Don't worry. So you can, in case you need it. And just so you know, we have classes for adults. I teach adults on Wednesdays and kids on Wednesdays and Fridays. So if you are looking for a weekly class, then those options are available. Just let me know. It's all these details are also on my website. So if you go to www.susanmatthewfernandez.com, you'll find everything there. Okay. So go ahead, have fun, enjoy your brush pens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks for joining. See you. Bye
See
bye.
you.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much,
Thank you.
Susan.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.